to you. He says the fact that inventories were still falling in the second quarter raises the odds that they add a huge amount to GDP's plus column in the third quarter. Chris Rupkey is here, chief financial economist from Bank of Tokyo-Mitsubishi. Chris, how, my eyes popped when I saw the inventory number this morning. How huge do you expect the number to be that's added to the plus column?
It might add very easily 3 percentage points to GDP in the third quarter. So if you get some of this, clunkers for cash, auto sales out there as well. I mean, there's about $1 billion out there in the clunkers for cash, 4,000 each. That's 250,000 cars. Annualize that, that's about 3 million cars. Maybe car sales in July, in July, went to maybe 12, 13 million annual rate.
And they're throwing another $2 billion at the program,
if you annualize
at least,
it.
Right?
So, I mean, this quarter could be very big. I see what J.P. Morgan's saying. I'll probably have to rejigger my own GDP forecast.
Now, we get the car sales on Monday, right? So we'll be getting that reading very soon. The inventories, though, do you expect them to finally start building in the third quarter? I mean, it's just hard to believe that there was that many inventories to wring out of the economy.
Well, the problem with inventories, it's a change of a change. So if they don't fall at the same rate and they are down a record again, well, a second record quarter in a row, as long as they don't fall at that rate, and if they fall like 90 billion, then, you get a big kick to GDP.
When do people start rebuilding them, Chris?
So, I mean, going to positive, that could be later on this year. Not as far off in the future as you think.
Even with the consumer so mild?
I think the consumer is going to come back quicker than you think. Don't forget that a lot of the reason for the weakness in consumer spending is we've been shedding about 1.5 million, 2 million jobs per quarter the last 3 quarters. Those 2 million people don't have any money to spend. So the minute the unemployment rate peaks, you're going to see consumer spending come back quicker than I think people think.
What about the consumer having to deleverage? I was talking to Carl Denninger, who writes a blog called The Market Ticker, which is pretty cool. And he says he thinks consumers still need to deleverage 25, maybe 30%, and we've only seen 3.5 so far. Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, I've seen the publication. It's very, very good. Yeah, I'm not really one of those people that believe that the consumer is in debt up to their eyeballs. The Fed has their own series showing that interest payments as a percentage of income aren't out of whack. I'd be careful with the idea that this greatest debt overhang we've seen in history is going to put the kibosh on business and consumer spending.
And it isn't a lot of the debt that people hold right now mortgage debt. And even though there's tons of foreclosures, there's tons of people who pay their mortgage, number one. And don't a lot of people just pay off their credit cards every month? Everybody thinks that the credit card debt is spread evenly across the population. But isn't it concentrated in the hands of a few?
Yeah, I would just be careful with the idea that the debt, I mean, it's a little bit worrisome to me, the fact that some of the banks are changing the terms of consumer credit and saying their old models don't work, we're not going to extend credit. That kind of worries me. But as far as people being in debt up to their eyebrows, I don't buy it. I mean, UK consumers have been in debt. There's been many stories that they're over their heads in debt, yet consumer spending there just went up tremendously, I think, in the month of June. So I would look, because things look like we're finishing up, we're 31 days into a positive growth quarter, third quarter, I would look for the news to be better than expected from here on out.
I wonder how you get out of I see what Kathleen's point is, that some people, I don't even really use a credit card, and if I do, I would pay it off immediately. No, it's because I had some bad experiences using a credit card too much when I was in college. But you have to look still at the aggregate number. I mean, there's a sincerely large amount of debt, and then you see home prices falling 37, 38, 39% across the country. How do you expect the debt to be paid off?
Slowly over time. I mean, they don't have to get it back down to zero before, consumer spending lifts. I think you want to look at it as there's the economy, population's growing 1.1% a year. The burden is on those to say why it's not growing 1.1%. All those people demand more services. They have demand for goods from companies. The economy wants to grow. It's very abnormal, a recession. I think it's coming back, and quicker than you think. Although I'm a little bit worried when policymakers are saying it's going to be a long haul here, it's not going to feel like a recovery. It's interesting that we've gone from the recession word to recovery word, yet the new take is that this is going to be a slow recovery. I'd be careful with that idea.
And jobless.
But isn't that partly because the Fed wants everybody to know don't think just because they want it to bring it into our heads, we'll have a recovery, but we're not going to raise rates for a while because it's slow, and so therefore you don't have to worry about inflation. Aren't they trying to job on us a bit?
Yeah, they could be. I mean, they definitely want to keep downward pressure on mortgage yields to keep the housing market going, or lead to a resurgence in housing. But housing construction appears to have bottomed at very low levels. The other thing, I'd be careful. I'm in agreement with J.P. Morgan on GDP, but I'm afraid the Fed's going to have an itchy trigger finger, and they're going to do the exit strategy quicker than you think. Right. Probably raising rates a year from now.
We'll have to. Well before then, we'll have to have you back and continue this conversation. But Chris Rupkey from Bank of Tokyo-Mitsubishi, Kathleen, thank you so much as well for joining us as usual.